welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung chaired his first National Security Council meeting since taking office and stressed that peaceful coexistence with North Korea is the most realistic and practical path to safeguarding national security. South Korea's minimum hourly wage for next year has been finalized after a long debate, set at 10,320 Korean won, or around $7.50, an increase of 2.9%. Former President Yoon, who was rearrested on Thursday over his failed martial law attempt, has been summoned to appear for questioning later this afternoon. The Minimum Wage Commission has decided to raise minimum wage by 2.9% next year. This was the very first agreement between the negotiating parties in 17 years. Our Kim Bo-kyung starts us off.
Starting next year, the hourly minimum wage will be 10,320 Korean won, around $7.50. This as the Minimum Wage Commission reached an agreement on Thursday to raise the minimum wage by 290 Korean won, that is 2.9% from this year's minimum wage of 10,030 Korean won per hour. If one works a standard monthly workload of 209 hours, the new minimum wage translates to a monthly income of 2,156,881. The commission is made up of 9 representatives, each from labor, management, and the general public, obliged to review the new minimum wage by mid-July for the labor minister to make a formal announcement by early August every year. This year's decision marks the first agreement reached among the 3 sides in 17 years. If an agreement cannot be made, the increase is decided by majority vote. The 2.9% increase is the lowest first-year hike under any administration since 2000, though minimum wage increases tend to be higher than average in the first year of a new administration. During first year of the Moon Jae-in administration, the minimum wage was raised by more than 16%, while for the first year of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration, it went up by 5%. The management side said they agreed to the decision after much deliberation.
It was a very difficult decision, made based on the thought that it would be better to support harmony and unity as the new government begins, rather than create more conflict.
While the labor side said the government should come up with measures to help low-paid workers.
It would be the Lee Jae-myung administration's task to deal with any areas that are insufficient. It must come up with strong measures to help low-wage workers cover their living costs.
After the commission submits an agreed minimum wage for next year to the Labor Ministry, the ministry will finalize and announce it by August 5th after the review process. The new rate will take effect starting the very first day of January next year. The presidential office called the commission's decision significant and added that the government will actively ensure the minimum wage is followed through promotion, guidance, and supervision. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung chaired his first National Security Council meeting on Thursday afternoon. The meeting served as an opportunity to review security priorities for the second half of the year, with North Korea-related issues being one of the key items on the agenda. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yu-jin reports.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung says peaceful coexistence with North Korea is, quote, the most realistic and practical path to safeguarding national security. He made the remarks during his first National Security Council meeting on Thursday. The president has already taken steps to de-escalate tensions, including suspending loudspeaker broadcasts along the inter-Korean border, a move that prompted the North to halt its propaganda campaign. The administration says it aims to build on that momentum.
The government will do everything it can to help people feel the Korean peninsula is becoming more peaceful and secure. There were discussions on ways to restore severed communication channels and links between the two Koreas.
This is in line with how President Lee views the path to safety.
The president noted that in matters of security, Prevention is always more important than responding afterward.
When asked whether the meeting covered trade talks with the United States, Kang said the discussions explored a range of options, with national interests as the top priority. South Korea is pursuing what it calls a package deal, which was discussed earlier this week in Washington between National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak and his American counterpart, Marco Rubio.
Talks include issues across the board, including trade, investment, purchasing goods, and security. We suggested taking all this into a package to make progress in negotiations.
Thursday's meeting, which lasted over 2 hours, was attended by the Prime Minister, senior officials from the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Unification, Defense, and Interior, as well as the National Intelligence Service and the Office of National Security. 송유진, Arirang News.
The annual series of ASEAN-related meetings takes place this week in Malaysia, and the sideline meetings often capture the most attention. It seems a possible trilateral between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo is in the works. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young has the latest.
South Korea, the United States, and Japan are looking to hold a high-level meeting in Kuala Lumpur as tariff-related tensions run high between Washington and its partners. According to diplomatic sources, the three sides are trying to coordinate an in-person meeting during the ASEAN Regional Forum of Foreign Ministers, which runs till Friday. South Korea this year is being represented by Park Yoon-joo, the first Vice Foreign Minister, as Foreign Minister nominee Cho Hyun hasn't yet been confirmed by Parliament. If held, Park's meeting with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Japan's Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya would be significant. It will mark the first high-level trilateral under South Korea's Lee Jae-myung administration and fall during the first official trip to Asia made by the US Secretary. South Korea, the US and Japan are invited dialogue partners to the annual conference of 10 Southeast Asian nations, which features economic and security talks concerning the region. Tariff-related concerns are likely to dominate discussions this year, after Washington this week renewed its threat to slap reciprocal duties on over a dozen trading partners, mostly those in the Indo-Pacific. As such, America's so-called trade rebalancing is expected to be addressed in its three-way meeting as Seoul and Tokyo face 25% tariffs from August 1st. The three sides may also address North Korea's growing security threat and coordinate messaging on deterrence and denuclearization, as Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is due in Pyongyang for a strategic dialogue after the regional forum. It's uncertain how far Seoul's rhetoric might go, given the Lee administration's dovish stance so far on inter-Korean relations. Park notably did not mention North Korea in his remarks in his engagements Thursday, focusing instead on regional diplomacy. At the meeting of ASEAN and its three Northeast Asian partners, South Korea, Japan and China, Park emphasized Seoul's commitment to strengthening trilateral cooperation with Tokyo and Beijing to align with ASEAN's goals, especially amid rising uncertainty and challenges in the region. His meeting with the Japanese and Chinese ministers marks the first senior-level contact between the three sides under South Korea's new government. Earlier in the day, Park took part in the Korea-ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting to adopt an updated 5-year plan to fulfill their comprehensive strategic partnership reached last year. The new action plan includes peace, not only security, cooperation on the Korean Peninsula, along with cybersecurity, maritime issues and digital transition. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Seoul's top trade negotiators said Thursday that Washington has shown interest in Seoul's proposal for manufacturing cooperation during their recent talks, especially in the shipbuilding and semiconductor sectors. According to Seoul's Trade Minister Yo Han-gu during his trip to Washington, he held talks with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, where he stressed South Korea's commitment to deepening manufacturing ties. The minister also called on the Trump administration to grant favorable treatment to South Korean companies when considering tariffs on imported cars, steel, and other imported goods. Yo said the U.S. side was interested in how Korean companies can contribute to the U.S. goal of rebuilding its manufacturing sector. So U.S. President Donald Trump has been ramping up pressure on South Korea, threatening to impose extra tariffs and calling on Seoul to pay more for defense. For more on what lies ahead for South Korea-U.S. relations, we're joined by Professor Kim Dong-soo, professor at Division of International and Area Studies at Pugyong National University. Professor Kim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So South Korea's top security advisor says no exact date has been set yet for a summit between President Lee and Trump. What does this mean for bilateral relations, and when can we expect this to take place?
I think South Korea and President Lee is deliberately holding off on firm commitments until key issues like tariffs and defense cost sharing are better resolved in working level talks. President Lee may need time for the delicate issues to be handled at the working level to a great extent. Trump may also need time to focus on some urgent issues like Middle East, federal budgets, etc. Also, holding off could be a strategic move for Trump as well, pressuring Seoul to make more concessions before a face-to-face meeting. So coordinating complex agendas across multiple issues takes time at both ends. I think the summit is likely to take place later this month before the August tariff implementation. Then both sides will have enough time to resolve outstanding issues and prepare a high-level meeting.
I see. And now that the tariff deadline set by U.S. President Donald Trump has been delayed by another 3 weeks, how do you think the tariff negotiations between Seoul and Washington will unfold?
I think South Korea can now pursue for more balanced terms, especially on autos, steel, and digital regulations and beef, without the pressure of an imminent deadline. Trump made clear the deadline isn't set in stone. Like if they pull out, we are open, something like that, signaling continued flexibility, but also keeping pressure alive. But eventually, Seoul is expected to propose specific concessions, relaxing beef standards, opening digital markets, and pledging increase the U.S. energy, industrial, and defense equipment purchase. Also, both sides may agree on a narrow package addressing key sectors like autos, steel, and digital services.
I see. And Trump says South Korea should pay as much as $10 billion a year for the presence of American troops in Korea. How should the Korean government respond to this, as Trump continues to pressure the country to pay more?
That's huge amount. South Korea already pays $1.1 billion annually, covering 40 to 45% of non-personnel stationing costs. Seoul should reaffirm its willingness to pay a fair and mutually agreed amount. However, Seoul would also stress that $10 billion is 5 times higher than the current contribution, and that U.S. forces are also strategically vital for U.S. interest in Asia, not just for South Korea's security. Trump's $10 billion demand is a negotiation opening, I think, not a final goal. South Korea's best move is to make efforts to reduce the amount, reaffirming its alliance commitment.
Right, and what's also concerning for South Korea is that a U.S. think tank reportedly recommended a reduction of the American forces in Korea. How do you think the Korean government should handle this issue?
Actually, South Korea faces a complex challenge in responding to the think tank recommendation to significantly reduce U.S. forces on the peninsula. Washington wanted always to enhance strategic flexibility by offering South Korea-based bases and logistics infrastructure for Indo-Pacific operations. But South Korea may need the U.S. to maintain significant U.S. forces on the Korean peninsula, not just for the South Korea security, but also for U.S. strategic interest, especially to ensure that China and North Korea do not misperceive the U.S. willingness to protect South Korea.
Right, and President Lee Jae-myung said he'll focus on pragmatic diplomacy when he took office in June. How do you think he will manage relations with the United States throughout his term?
That's a tough issue, actually. President Lee is not an anti-American, but he's determined to rebalance the alliance. I think he will support the continued U.S. troops presence, but at the same time, he's likely to resist excessive cost sharing or one-sided demands, like a Trump $10 billion demands. President Lee may frame their alliance as mutual, not hierarchical. President Lee's diplomacy may also include repairing ties with China, which is South Korea's top trade partner, while not undermining U.S. security cooperation. So President Lee's pragmatic diplomacy to manage relations with the United States will be issue-by-issue approach, not like an automatic agreement, because it's the administration's priority is national interest rather than alliance.
Right, it really is a tough issue. All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
On the local front, the special counsel team investigating former President Yoon Suk-yeol's failed martial law bid summoned the rearrested former leader to appear for questioning later this afternoon. Our Cha Eun-kyung reports.
Special counsel Cho Eun-suk on Thursday sent a summons for former President Yoon Suk-yeol to attend questioning on Friday over his failed martial law bid. This would be the first time the former president is questioned following his rearrest early Thursday, making him the first former Korean president to be detained, released, and detained again. On Sunday, the counsel team formally accused Yoon of 5 major charges. That, on December 3rd last year, Yoon held a partial cabinet meeting to simulate approval for martial law. That he wrote a false martial law statement and later destroyed it. That he spread false information to foreign media, that he ordered the deletion of secure phone records, and that he used the Presidential Security Service to stop the police from arresting him. After a 6-hour 40-minute hearing and a review that lasted 5 hours on Wednesday, Seoul Central District Court issued the warrant at around 2 a.m. Thursday on fears that Yoon could destroy evidence. However, as Yoon did not attend his insurrection trial Thursday morning due to health issues, there are question marks over whether former President Yoon will show up. If Yoon refuses to attend the questioning again, the special counsel team could take Yoon into custody after meeting him at the detention center or try to question him there. The special counsel is scheduled to indict him on these charges within 20 days while also investigating other allegations. Cha Eun-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Beginning in the United States, a federal judge in New Hampshire has issued a nationwide preliminary injunction blocking President Donald Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship. Judge Joseph LaPlante ruled on Thursday that when such an order is in effect, it would prevent tens of thousands of newborns, an estimated 150,000 annually, from obtaining automatic citizenship, violating the 14th Amendment's guarantee. The judge referenced the Supreme Court's recent guidance that limits the use of nationwide injunctions but allows class action mechanisms to protect constitutional rights. The judge also certified a class action lawsuit on behalf of U.S.-born children who will be impacted. The injunction applies to all U.S.-born children after February 20th, 2025. Supporters of birthright citizenship hailed the decision, while the White House called it judicially excessive. Over in Europe, Greece has temporarily halted processing asylum applications from migrants arriving by sea from North Africa. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, addressing Parliament on July 9th, stated that the suspension will last an initial 3 months, citing a surge of more than 7,300 arrivals on the islands of Crete and Gavdos so far this year, compared to just over 5,000 in all of 2024. The arrivals, mainly from Sudan, Egypt, and Bangladesh, having been transiting through Libya. Mitsotakis described the move as an emergency response and authorized the swift return of those entering the country illegally. The government is also strengthening cooperation with Libyan authorities and deploying patrol vessels. Humanitarian groups denounced the policy as illegal and inhumane. The UN Refugee Agency also expressed serious concern, saying the right to seek asylum is a fundamental human right. An original Hermes Birkin bag designed in 1984 for Jane Birkin sold at Sotheby's Paris on Thursday for approximately $10 million, setting a new record as the most expensive handbag ever auctioned. The starting price was slightly over $1 million, with a Japanese collector winning the bid over the phone. The leather handbag, created after Birkin famously sketched it on an airplane sick bag, bears her initials JB and a fixed shoulder strap, unlike commercially sold models. Worn by Birkin for nearly 9 years, the bag was originally auctioned in 1994 to benefit HIV/AIDS charities and subsequently sold in 2000. Finally, Thailand's beloved pygmy hippo, Moo Deng, turned 1-year-old on Thursday at Khao Keo Open Zoo in Chonburi, marking her first birthday with a 4-day celebration. The festivities kicked off with over 12,000 visitors on day 1, including fans who traveled from abroad, and free entry for children under 12. Activities including a 20-kilogram tropical fruit cake, a parade, and photo exhibitions of Moo Deng. Moo Deng, whose name translates to bouncy pork, has sparked global social media fascination since her birth on July 10, 2024, drawing millions of views and boosting zoo visits.
Feeling exhausted from this prolonged heat wave? You're not alone. The intense heat in western regions will stay through the weekend. It's best if you could limit outdoor activities. Health should come first during an extreme heat wave. Stay well hydrated even if you don't feel thirsty, and avoid alcohol. We finally had a welcome break from tropical nights. No wonder the heat didn't wake me up in the middle of the night. But again, afternoon heat will continue with a heat wave warning remaining in place for most of the western regions. Seoul gets up to 36 degrees Celsius, Daegu topping out at 32, but most of the East Coast regions, including Gyeongju, Gangneung, and Ulsan, will have a heat relief, while Jeju will see some afternoon rain, while the rest of the country will be under mostly sunny skies. Jeju could see rain through the weekend, but heat will subside in the capital area with rain expected for the middle of next week. So until then, take care in this extreme heat.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.